Welcome back to Earthly Delights. Today, I want you to look closely at this lavender plant. Not just a quick glance, but a careful look. The stems have turned pale gray, dry, and brittle. The leaves that were once fresh and full of life have curled into tight, dry little fists. And that beautiful purple color we all love is now almost completely gone. If you have spent any time in a garden, you have probably faced a plant like this before. Maybe it was in a terracotta pot on your porch, or sitting in a corner of the yard where you kept hoping it would recover. And at some point, you may have felt that heavy little sting of failure. You may have reached for your trowel, ready to pull it out by the roots, throw it onto the compost pile, and tell yourself it was simply another plant that did not survive. But before you do that, stop. Put the trowel down. After years of working with soil, garden beds, tired crops, and plants that looked far beyond saving, I have learned something important. A plant that looks dead is not always dead. Many times, it is not dead at all. It is stressed, hungry, exhausted, and misunderstood. Lavender is especially good at fooling us this way. On the outside, it can look dry, woody, and hopeless, while deep inside, there may still be life waiting for the right care. In the next few minutes, I am going to show you how to help this Mediterranean plant recover step by step. We will go through 5 natural fertilizers and soil boosters that many gardeners already have at home, in the kitchen, near the fireplace, or even in the bathroom cabinet. No expensive chemical products, no complicated trips to the garden center, just simple materials used correctly and at the right time. By the end of this video, you will understand not only how to give your lavender a second chance, but also how to read what the plant and soil are trying to tell you. Because sometimes, the difference between losing a plant and saving it is simply knowing what it truly needs. So let's begin, because this lavender may not be finished yet. Part 1. The diagnosis, the scratch test, and the secret of dormancy. Before we give this lavender any kind of fertilizer, we need to slow down and diagnose it properly. In gardening, the first rule is simple. Never feed a plant before you understand what is really happening. So the question we need to ask is this: is this lavender truly dead, or is it only resting? Plants have their own survival systems, and one of the most important is dormancy. In areas with cold winters, long wet seasons, or stressful weather, lavender can shut down much of its visible growth to protect itself. The leaves may lose their fresh green color and turn dull gray. The stems may look dry, woody, and brittle. From the outside, the whole plant can seem finished, but underneath that rough surface, there may still be living tissue holding on. The quickest way to find out is with what gardeners call the scratch test. Go to your struggling lavender and choose one of the main stems near the base of the plant. Using your thumbnail or a clean pair of pruners, gently scrape away just the thinnest outer layer of bark. Do not cut deep. We are looking for the cambium layer, the living tissue that helps move water and nutrients through the plant. If you see even a thin streak of green beneath the bark, that is a very good sign. It means your lavender is still alive. The roots may still be working quietly below the soil, waiting for the right conditions to send energy back upward. If the first stem you test is dry, brown, and snaps easily, do not give up immediately. Move lower toward the soil line and test again, because lavender often dies back from the top first. That is one of the most important lessons this plant can teach us. A weathered surface does not always mean the life inside is gone. Sometimes the core is still active, simply waiting for warmth, better soil conditions, and a little help from us. Part 2. The real culprit. Why we love our plants to death. Before we begin using any natural remedy, we need to understand why the lavender declined in the first place. If we skip this step, we may save it for a short time, only to repeat the same mistake again. To understand lavender, we have to remember where it comes from. Picture the rocky, sun-baked hillsides of the Mediterranean. The soil there is not rich, heavy, or constantly wet. It is gritty, lean, dry, and often alkaline. Lavender developed in those tough conditions, under strong sun, with very little water and excellent drainage. That leads us to a truth many gardeners learn the hard way. Lavender usually does not die because we neglect it. More often, it dies because we care for it too much in the wrong way. When we bring lavender into our gardens, we often put it in rich potting mix, heavy soil, or a place that holds moisture too long. Then, because we want to help, We water it again and again. But for lavender, sitting in wet, acidic soil is like trying to breathe under a soaked blanket. The roots need air. When the soil stays too wet, those roots begin to suffocate, rot, and lose their ability to support the plant. Lavender teaches a very practical lesson. Sometimes good care means stepping back. It needs full sun, sharp drainage, and soil that is allowed to dry between waterings. What it does not need is constant water or heavy feeding. What it often benefits from is light, mineral-rich support that improves the soil, balances the pH, and strengthens the roots without overwhelming them. And that brings us to the first natural helper. Part 3. Fertilizer #1. Crushed eggshells, the great pH balancer. One of the quiet problems that can weaken lavender is soil that has become too sour or acidic. Lavender prefers soil that is neutral to slightly alkaline, usually around a pH of 6.5 to 7.5. When the soil becomes too acidic, the roots may struggle to take up nutrients properly. So even if food is present in the soil, the plant can still behave as if it is starving. This is where our first simple household ingredient comes in: eggshells. Eggshells are mostly calcium carbonate, the same basic compound found in garden lime. When prepared correctly, they can help gently reduce soil acidity and move the root zone closer to the alkaline conditions lavender prefers. But this is where many gardeners make a mistake. Tossing whole eggshells or large broken pieces onto the soil will not help quickly. Those shells can take months, or even much longer, to break down enough for the plant to benefit from them. A weak lavender does not have that kind of time. The better method is to save about a dozen eggshells, rinse them well, and let them dry completely. Once they are dry, grind them into a very fine powder using a blender or coffee grinder. The finer the powder, the more surface area it has, and the faster it can begin working in the soil. Take 2 heaping tablespoons of this fine eggshell powder and sprinkle it evenly around the base of the lavender. Then gently mix it into the top inch of soil, being careful not to damage the shallow roots or disturb the woody crown. Over the next week or two, this gentle calcium amendment can help buffer the soil, reduce excess acidity, and create better conditions for the roots to function again. It is not about forcing the plant to grow overnight. It is about correcting the foundation so the lavender can begin recovering naturally. Part 4. Fertilizer #2. Wood ash, the potassium powerhouse. Now, if you have a fireplace, a wood stove, or even a small backyard fire pit, you may already have one of the oldest and most useful soil amendments sitting right at home: pure wood ash. The light gray ash left after burning clean, untreated wood contains valuable potassium and calcium. For lavender, potassium is especially important because it supports stronger stems, better stress resistance, and the kind of full, fragrant purple blooms gardeners are always hoping to see. Calcium also helps improve the soil environment, and because wood ash is naturally alkaline, it works well alongside crushed eggshells when we are trying to keep lavender in the neutral to slightly alkaline range it prefers. For a weak lavender plant that is low in potassium, wood ash can sometimes create a noticeable improvement. But this is where experience matters, because wood ash is powerful. Used correctly, it can help. Used carelessly, it can cause problems very quickly. Too much wood ash can push the soil pH too high. When that happens, the plant may struggle to absorb important trace minerals, and tender roots can become stressed or even burned. So with this ingredient, more is not better. Control is everything. Use exactly 1 tablespoon of cool, dry wood ash. Make sure it comes only from clean, untreated wood. Never use ash from charcoal briquettes, painted wood, pressure-treated timber, or anything that may contain chemicals. Scatter that 1 tablespoon thinly in a wide circle around the lavender, keeping it a few inches away from the woody crown of the plant. Then water it in gently, just enough to help it settle into the soil. This is not something to repeat often. Use wood ash no more than once every 6 weeks. When we respect the strength of this simple natural material, it can help turn yesterday's fire into tomorrow's flowers. Part 5. Fertilizer starting 3. Banana peel tea, the root healer. Now that we have started improving the soil conditions near the surface, it is time to think about what is happening underground. A struggling lavender plant often needs support at the root level, and for that, we can use something many people throw away without a second thought: banana peels. Banana peels contain potassium and phosphorus. Potassium helps the plant maintain strength and overall vigor, while phosphorus is closely connected with root development. When a tired plant is trying to recover, healthy roots are everything. Without a functioning root system, the leaves and stems cannot receive the water and nutrients they need. But I want to be very clear about something. Do not bury banana peels directly in the soil around lavender. I know that advice appears everywhere, but lavender is not the right plant for that method. A buried banana peel breaks down slowly, holds moisture, and can create a damp pocket near the roots. And as we already know, excess moisture around lavender roots is one of the fastest ways to trigger root rot. Instead, we use banana peels in a gentler and cleaner way by making banana peel tea. Take the peels from 2 or 3 bananas and chop them into small pieces. Place them in a glass jar with about 1 liter of water, then let the mixture sit at room temperature for 2 to 3 days. During that time, the water will pull out some of the nutrients from the peels and turn a light yellow-brown color. After that, strain out the softened peel pieces. Then dilute the banana water with an equal amount of plain water. This step matters because lavender does not like heavy feeding. Pour the diluted tea slowly around the base of the plant, just enough to lightly moisten the root zone without soaking it. Used every 2 to 3 weeks, banana peel tea can provide a mild, steady recovery feed. It works quietly below the surface, supporting the roots first, because that is where real recovery begins. Part 6, Fertilizer #4. Used coffee grounds. A whisper of nitrogen. Now we need to talk about one of the most misunderstood garden ingredients on the internet. Coffee grounds. You may have heard people say to put coffee grounds around every plant in the garden. For lavender, that advice can be dangerous if it is followed carelessly. Coffee grounds hold moisture, and they are mildly acidic. Those are 2 things lavender does not appreciate, especially when it is already weak or growing in heavy soil. So why include coffee grounds at all? Because when they are used in a very small amount, and only at the right time, they can provide one useful element, nitrogen. A recovering plant sometimes needs a tiny push of nitrogen to encourage fresh green growth. Not too much, because too much nitrogen can make lavender soft, leafy, and less resilient. But a small amount can help the plant begin rebuilding its foliage once the soil has already been balanced with alkaline materials, like eggshell powder and wood ash. The key is precision. Use only coffee grounds that have already been brewed. Never use fresh coffee grounds around lavender, because they can be too strong, too acidic, and may contain compounds that are not friendly to young roots. After brewing, spread the used grounds on a plate and let them dry completely. Once they are dry, take no more than 1 teaspoon. Scatter it very thinly across the soil surface and gently mix it into only the top layer. That is enough. 1 teaspoon, once a month, no more. Think of used coffee grounds as a seasoning, not a full meal. A small touch of nitrogen can help encourage fresh leaves, but too much can create wet, acidic conditions that work against everything lavender needs. With this plant, the best results usually come from restraint, not excess. Part 7. Fertilizer 5 Epsom salt, the instant green-up miracle. Now we come to the 5th remedy, and this is the one that often gives gardeners the most visible change. If your lavender still has some leaves left, but they look pale, yellowish, dull, or washed out, there is a good chance the plant is struggling with a magnesium deficiency. That is where Epsom salt comes in. Epsom salt is magnesium sulfate. Magnesium is extremely important because it sits at the center of chlorophyll, the green pigment plants use to capture light and turn it into energy. Without enough magnesium, the plant cannot photosynthesize properly, and the leaves begin to lose that healthy green tone. The sulfur in Epsom salt also plays a supporting role in plant health and can help strengthen the natural fragrance lavender is known for. The recipe is simple. Dissolve exactly 1 tablespoon of Epsom salt in 1 liter of water. Stir it well until everything has fully dissolved. You can use this solution to water around the root zone, or, if the plant still has enough leaves, you can apply it lightly to the foliage so the plant can absorb some magnesium through the leaves. Use this only once every 3 to 4 weeks during the active growing season. Epsom salt is pH neutral, so it will not work against the eggshells, wood ash, or other soil adjustments we have already discussed. When magnesium is truly the missing piece, the improvement in leaf color can appear surprisingly fast, sometimes within just a few days. It can feel like the plant is finally waking up again. Part 8, the master plan, putting it all together in the golden rule of water. Now, do not take all 5 ingredients and apply them to your lavender at the same time. That is one of the biggest mistakes a gardener can make. A weak plant does not need to be overwhelmed. It needs a steady recovery plan, used with patience and proper timing. Here is the simple recovery rhythm. Week 1. Focus on the foundation. Apply 2 heaping tablespoons of finely powdered eggshells and 1 tablespoon of clean wood ash. This helps improve acidic soil conditions and gives the plant calcium and potassium support. Week 2. Wake up the roots. Use your diluted banana peel tea and pour it slowly around the base of the lavender. This gives a gentle feed that supports root recovery without burying wet organic material in the soil. Week 3. Bring back the color. Apply the Epsom salt solution so the plant receives magnesium, especially if the remaining leaves look pale, yellow, or tired. Week 4 and beyond. Only after you see clear signs of fresh growth, you can introduce 1 small teaspoon of dried used coffee grounds. This gives the plant a light touch of nitrogen to support new leafy growth. After that, you can move into a careful monthly rotation, always watching how the plant responds. But through the entire process, remember the golden rule of lavender. It would rather be a little hungry and dry than wet and overfed. Let the top inch or 2 of soil dry out fully before watering again. If your lavender is in a pot, make sure the drainage holes are open and water can leave freely. If it is planted in the ground, the soil must drain well and never stay soggy around the roots. No fertilizer can save lavender if the roots are sitting in wet soil and slowly rotting. If you follow this rhythm carefully, within 3 to 4 weeks, you may begin to see fresh, silvery green shoots pushing from stems that once looked dry and hopeless. The plant can start to firm up, regain strength, and eventually reward you again with those beautiful purple flowers that made you fall in love with lavender in the first place. The joy of revival gardening is never just about putting plants into soil and hoping for the best. It is a conversation with the earth. It teaches us to observe before we act, to understand the needs of each plant, and to remember that many garden problems can be solved when we correct the conditions instead of simply adding more water or more fertilizer. I have seen weak plants recover when gardeners stopped guessing and started reading the signs properly. Lavender especially often looks worse than it really is. If there is still green under the bark, there is still a chance. So here is what I want you to do today. Go out and check that lavender plant you thought was dead. Do the scratch test near the base. If you find that thin streak of green, do not throw the plant away yet. Start with the recovery plan. Keep the soil dry between waterings and give it the right kind of support, step by step. And when you try these 5 natural fertilizers, come back and share which one gave you the fastest visible result. Your experience may help another gardener save a plant they were ready to give up on. If this gave you a little more hope for your garden, hit the like button and subscribe to Earthly Delights. It helps this gardening community grow and helps these simple, practical lessons reach more people who may be one step away from saving their own plants. Until next time, keep your hands in the soil, keep asking better questions, and remember, your lavender may not be dead yet, and your garden still has more life in it than you think. See you in the next one.